All right, well, it's 10:35, so let's go ahead and get started. I want to thank you guys for joining us this morning for a new webinar series that we're going to be doing here at Apptricity. We're going to be condensing this one a little bit more and doing a session this week. We'll have another one next week, and then a session the following week. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we dive into the schedule. But the title of this webinar series is IoT Solutions for Retail Supply Chains. So if you were with us in our past webinar series that we completed back in September, or I guess it was early September that we ended that. So we got a lot of feedback on the retail side. People asking questions about, what are some specific solutions that we can utilize for retail. And so we went back to the drawing board, and I don't know if you guys can hear the sirens in the background over there, but we went back to the drawing board and put together a 3-part series. Like I said, it'll be a little bit more condensed to talk about how you can utilize different IoT solutions in your supply chain, specifically for retail. So that's what we're going to be covering today. Part 1 of the 3-part series, we're going to be talking about the manufacturing and warehouse section of the supply chain. So just a couple of housekeeping things before we dive into the presentation. For those of you, again, who were on the previous webinar series, we're going to maintain the same format. I'll have everybody muted just to eliminate as much noise as possible. We are recording this and we will be uploading this to YouTube. So if you want to revisit this, you can catch it on our Apptricity YouTube channel. And then we will save time at the end for a Q&A session. So if you have questions, write them down, keep them in the bank, and then we'll have a dedicated period of time to address those at the end. So let's go over the agenda real quick. I'll start by introducing myself and the company. I'll discuss the purpose and format. I know I kind of already did that, but I'll go into a little bit deeper detail for the webinar series. And then we'll dive into the main bulk of this webinar, which is manufacturing and warehouse specific solutions for the retail supply chain. And that's going to be divided into 4 sections. It'll be an overview, a solution focus, what it looks like to deploy a solution, and then what are the benefits you can expect from a connected system. So those are really the 4 parts that we'll be touching on. We'll then have a dedicated Q&A session, like I just mentioned, and then we'll close. So I'll reiterate again, if you have questions, write them down. We'll have a dedicated time period at the end to go over those. And if for some reason we don't get to your question, I have my email address on one of the last slides, so you can reach out to me personally with any questions that you may have. Let's move on. So introductions. My name is Christian Garcia. I'm a product manager at Apptricity. I work on these supply chain solutions. So the things that we'll be talking about today are in my wheelhouse. I've been with the company for 7 years. I've been with the company in some capacity really for over 10 years. And in that time, I've worked on testing and deploying and really designing the solutions that we're going to be talking about today. So got a lot of experience in this background. And Apptricity, as a company, is a provider of IoT-enabled supply chain solutions. We utilize cutting-edge IoT devices and cloud-hosted software to create what we like to call a system of operation. And so if you've never heard that term before, a lot of companies deploy what we refer to as a system of record, an ERP solution. And what those solutions tend to lack is the day-to-day insight into operations. That can include things like tracking, things like maintenance, things that are required to make your day-to-day operations seamless. And that's really where Apptricity comes in with our solutions, is we give you the boots on the ground, the 24/7 monitoring that you need in order to empower that system of record to be the best that it can possibly be. And so that's what a system of operation really is it helps you manage those day-to-day operations. And that's what we'll be talking about today, are solutions that really help build that system of operations. And we have a little over 20 years of experience as a company doing this exact thing. We've worked with companies such as Verizon, Komatsu, and Brinks. We also work on the government side with the U.S. Army and the U.S. Air Force. So we have a long history of doing this exact thing for businesses like yourself. And so we're excited to be able to talk about some of these things that we've learned in those years of experience. And hopefully you can leave with a bit of an insight on how to improve your retail supply chain. So let's talk a little bit about the webinar series. And we're going to be basically branding this as the mission statement, the key takeaway for this entire series. And that is that complete supply chain visibility is not only achievable, but it can be done with an automated, low maintenance solution. By combining cloud hosted software with IoT connected devices, retail companies can eliminate major blind spots in key areas of the supply chain. And really, the key takeaway from the key takeaway is it's automated, it's low maintenance. It's not something that you have to constantly be tinkering with or making adjustments to. It's a set it and forget it. You set it up and the system is automated. It will do all the data processing, all the things that you need, and then generate the reports that you need to have at a high level to understand the efficiencies and the inefficiencies that you need to address. It's here to save you time. It's here to save you money. And it's here to optimize the hours that you spend managing your supply chain. And so really throughout the course of this, we're going to be addressing the three different retail business models. These are models. We've worked with companies in each one of these categories. Ideally, your business should fit into one of these three. If not, I'd love to hear how your business works differently from these three models. And so we're going to be really addressing three types of companies. The first type is companies that manufacture and sell their own merchandise at self-managed channels. So that means companies who build their own, they build their own merchandise, they manufacture their own merchandise, and then they operate their own storefronts. So that's really the first type of company that we'll be addressing. Second company would be a company that manufactures and sells their merchandise across both self-managed channels and authorized retail partners. So you see this a lot in like say sporting goods, right? So a company like Nike, they own their own storefronts, but they're also selling at other sporting goods stores. So this is really the second model, a company like that. The third model would be a company that does not do any of their own manufacturing, but they sell merchandise from multiple retail partners. So to stay in the sporting goods model, a place like Dick's Sporting Goods, or here in Texas we have Academy, right? So these companies, they have retail partners, and they're basically selling different brands at their store. So those are the three models that we're going to be focusing on. Like I said, if your model is not mentioned in that, I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to hear how your business operates in the retail realm. So that's a little bit about the webinar series. Just continuing on that, really we have three goals, or we have one goal, but we have three parts to accomplish that goal. We want to discuss the viability of IoT-enabled solutions at three key points in the supply chain. So if we look at the diagram that we have here on the right, well, it's really an infogram, I guess. We have four key points, really three key points in the supply chain. We have the manufacturing, the warehouse, and the storefront. And so part one, you see we're going to be focusing on the manufacturing and warehouse side. Depending on your type of business, the top of your supply chain is either manufacturing or the warehouse. And part two, we're talking about the steps in between, the in-transit side of things. So that's going to be going live on October 5th. You should be receiving an email invite to that. If you're on this one, we'll send out another invite to that session as we get closer to the date. But part two, we're going to talk about in-transit visibility. So in between the different points, and there's visibility that you can gain that previously was a lot harder to accomplish. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then session three, which will go live on October 10th, that will be talking about the storefront. So basically, how can we manage retail at the storefront and promote visibility? So those are the three sessions. We encourage you to attend each one. Like I mentioned at the beginning, if you are unable to attend each one, we will have these posted on YouTube as they get completed. So without further ado, let's dive into the PowerPoint here. So basically, this point of manufacturing and warehouse represents the top of the supply chain. It's vital to ensure that problems do not continue down the chain at this point. So anything that happens here is going to snowball down. And so basically, it's vital to get this part right. So that's really why we're focusing on this as our first session. And whether you manufacture goods or if you just receive them from retail partners, this step is vital. Like I just mentioned, you don't want issues to snowball. If things don't happen right on the top end, at each different point, they compound. And so we need to get this point right. Some of the common pain points that you see at this section, cycle counts. Obviously, the way that you validate what you have in your inventory, those cycle counts are often, they take too long. And if you're relying on the human element, they're inaccurate, right? Second point, comparing what is supposed to be delivered and really what is delivered. So that goes a little bit into in-transit visibility, understanding what is on each shipment. But also, if you're one of those types of businesses that's receiving things at your warehouse or your distribution center from multiple different retail partners, you're probably getting something like an advanced shipping notice to say, here's what's going to be delivered on this date. And if that advanced shipping notice is not matched up with what's actually being delivered, you can create inconsistencies between the reality of the quantity on hand and what's supposed to be, or what was projected to be, quantity on hand. So these are pain point. That's a second pain point that you'll tend to experience. And then the third point is a little bit different. We're talking more about the different assets that you use to manage your warehouse. So essentially, the misplacement of assets that you use for warehouse operations. So we're talking about things like handheld scanners, forklifts, pallet jacks. It could be any of those. It could be anything else that you use to manage your warehouse. And so when those things get misplaced, and you're managing a large warehouse with a large amount of square footage, it can become incredibly difficult to pinpoint the location of those things. And you can spend, hours looking for those types of things that are vital to managing an efficient warehouse. So those are really three of the pain points that we want to focus on here today. And before we get into how we solve these problems, we really want to talk about the 3 Ps. You may have heard us talk about this on a previous webinar or potentially a podcast that we've done, but we really like to push this concept because it really helps to explain the levels of location accuracy that you can get. And so depending on the level of tracking you require, there's really 3 tiers that you can accomplish. The first tier is presence. It's basically just understanding, I know that this is present in the building. And so really, this doesn't require a lot of scanning infrastructure. And when we talk about scanning infrastructure, I'll dive a little bit more into that into the following slides. But just knowing that something is there doesn't require a lot of infrastructure. So when we talk about infrastructure, we're typically talking about setting up fixed readers or using handheld scanners to scan tags that are associated with merchandise. So if you just want to know that something's present, all you have to do is just say, hey, this tag, tag number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is this pallet. If I scan it, I know it's there. So it's pretty simple. It doesn't require a lot of infrastructure, but it's the least amount of location accuracy. Again, if we go back to the example of warehouse management assets, just knowing that the assets are in the warehouse isn't good enough. You need to know a little bit more in a directed way. Hey, it's in maybe this quadrant, or it's in this section of the warehouse. And that's where we get into proximity. So now we're narrowing the scope with each one of these levels of precision, with each one of these levels of precision, we're narrowing the scope of where we can expect to find the items. So proximity. So I have it as knowing really the section of the building where it's at. So now maybe we're cutting the building into halves or quadrants. And this requires a little bit more infrastructure because, again, you're setting up more controllers or you're using more handheld scanners to go out and find specific things. And so as you'll see, if you look at the image on the bottom here, it's on a scale, right? It's a cost scale and a location scale. So basically, the less you spend, the less accuracy you get. The more you spend, the more accuracy you get. And so that arrives us at the third part, which is position. This is really where we start getting into, I know that it's within this 30-foot radius. I know that it's within this 9-foot radius. I've talked a little bit about indoor positioning. We did a webinar series, or our previous webinar series, I believe we dedicated 2 episodes to that. We are constantly improving on that location accuracy. And the bigger the mesh you set up, the better the accuracy you get. But again, that's more infrastructure. And so really what we're presenting with these 3 Ps is that you get to pick and choose the level of accuracy that you're looking to accomplish. And you may have different levels of accuracy requirements for different types of equipment or for different locations. And you kind of have the flexibility to pick and choose what makes the most sense for your business. But the important takeaway here is that you can accomplish location accuracy with cheap infrastructure. You don't have to spend, hours and, thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to set up a mesh. If you want to start basic and just say, hey, I set up a controller at this location and everything it scans, I know it's at that location. And if that meets your business need, then great, you can accomplish that. If you need to be a little bit more specific to, hey, I know that it's in this 30-foot radius, and I can use an app to direct myself to the location, that's also possible. So it's really anywhere that you fit within that scale. So let's talk about some of the solutions to the pain points that we mentioned. So I got a little ahead of myself. I talked a little bit about IPS, but let's talk more about IPS. So an IPS solution can be used to locate important warehouse equipment by establishing a tracking mesh using fixed readers, Bluetooth beacons, and a floor map image. So basically, when we talk about floor map images, this is some sort of representative diagram or image of your location. And it can be as simple as a JPEG or a PNG. We've gone as complex as AutoCAD drawings of the actual layout of the floor. And so essentially what we're doing in this solution is on the image itself, we're placing controllers at sections or zones that are of importance to your business. And then we're using our algorithm. We're taking signal strength from the controller to the tag. Obviously, the tag is associated with a piece of merchandise or something that you want to track. And we're converting that signal strength into XY coordinates. Or if you take a look at our latest version, everything gets converted into real latitude and longitude coordinates, into GeoJSON, if you want some of the technical jargon. And so that's the level of accuracy that we're able to attain by uploading a floor map, basically drawing out the mesh on the floor map and then tagging items of importance with Bluetooth beacons. And so indoor positioning, we tend to see this for tracking things like warehouse operation assets. So it's a great solution for that use case. Inventory tracking. This is another solution that we've deployed quite frequently. I stumbled over my words there. And this solution requires you to outfit the warehouse with fixed readers, and you can use either Bluetooth or RFID tags. Typically, we tend to see this more with RFID tags because if businesses are looking to use Bluetooth, then they're probably just going to deploy an IPS solution at that point. But really the difference between Bluetooth and RFID tags is that RFID tags are passive. So you need to set up controllers and antennas, typically more antennas or antennas with a little bit more gain, which basically just means power, because those are passive tags. Whereas Bluetooth beacons are active beacons. So they're constantly sending their signal out. There's less distance for the signal to travel to get to an antenna because it's active. With the passive tag, it's just waiting to be scanned. So you need antennas with a little bit more power, but typically because RFID tags are so much cheaper than Bluetooth beacons, the RFID solution tends to be cheaper on the whole, at the sacrifice of giving you less location accuracy. And so that's really where, with inventory tracking, you would use this to accomplish something like the first P, just understanding that it's present in the location. And this solution allows you to automate the scan frequency so that basically you can have scans go once a day. You can have scans go once every 6 hours. You can have scans go once every 10 minutes. Whatever you choose, you can have that frequency defined for how often it scans. And so we talk about inventory tracking. This is a great cycle count solution as well. If I have controllers set up that are scanning tags, and this is happening, once a day, I'm doing a cycle count once a day. I'm getting a report that says, here's everything that was scanned, as opposed to sending out my employees, having them spend 6 hours and sending 10 people out, and the results you get are kind of flaky, right? Instead, you're automating that process, and it's happening as frequently or infrequently as you want. And then the third solution, we'll talk about the connected service vehicle. We will definitely dive more into this as we hop into the in-transit visibility part of the webinar series. But really the same technology that you're using for indoor positioning or for inventory tracking can provide in-transit visibility into the quantity and the location of tagged merchandise. So in each of these solutions that we've modeled, the technology, the devices that you use are the exact same. It's a fixed reader, which in electricity terms we call it an iConnect controller. It's RFID or Bluetooth tags. Those two things, whether they're deployed in a warehouse, they're deployed in an 18-wheeler like we have in the image here. That could be deployed in a shipping container, could be deployed in an airplane, like a cargo plane. Whatever the case may be, the technology is the same, and it provides the same benefit across the board. You're scanning items with controllers, and so you're getting location, or not only are you getting quantity and location of the vehicle, because these controllers can have GPS antennas associated with them as well. You're getting notifications if inventory leaves the vehicle. And like I said, I wanted to give a little teaser on this because depending on where your business is, if you're manufacturing your own items, then this could become important as you start shipping them out to warehouses or distribution centers. Now, if you're just receiving things from other manufacturers, this may not be as applicable for your use case unless you have some sway in the manufacturers that you work with, and the ability to kind of establish a tracking solution at their section of the supply chain. So, like I said, we'll talk more about this when we talk about in-transit visibility, but I wanted to get this out there as a bit of a teaser for the next episode. But also, if you are manufacturing your own goods and you're responsible for the shipping side, this may be applicable to you at this level of the supply chain. And so let's talk about how to deploy a solution. So we've talked about the solutions, we've talked about the pain points. How do you actually set this thing up? It's a lot more simple than you may think. So the first step in deploying any IoT connected solution is to install the infrastructure. And when we talk about infrastructure, we're talking about fixed readers with internet connectivity. So again, at Electricity, we call them iConnect controllers. And these can gain internet connectivity through LTE cellular. So basically the SIM chip, the same type of SIM chip that you use in your phone. It can gain internet connectivity that way. You can attach a Wi-Fi antenna and connect via Wi-Fi. You can also connect via Ethernet. So power over Ethernet is another option that we support. So if your warehouse has Wi-Fi, just connect it to Wi-Fi. If you need something in transit, like we just talked about, a cellular connectivity may make more sense because it's on the go. But regardless, you have options to choose to establish your fixed readers and connect them to the internet. The other side of this, which I forgot to mention in this bullet point, is you'll also have the antennas that you associate with the controllers as well. And so these can be Bluetooth antennas or RFID antennas. There's a variety of different types that you can use. There's more variety on the RFID side, depending on the different gain levels and the size of. I'm going to use my hands again, and I know that I'm kind of small on this webinar, but it produces basically a cone that sends out and it picks up any tags that it scans for. So Bluetooth is more done in a circular manner. It basically creates a radius around the antenna, and then the tag itself creates a radius where it pings out its signal. But you have options, is essentially what I'm getting at, is when you're associating or connecting antennas to the controller, and then you can run long cable and put them, pretty far distances away from the controller itself. And then depending on the business model, the next step is not depending on the business model, the next step is to tag manufactured goods, but where you tag them depends on the business model. We're talking about Bluetooth or RFID tags. You're basically making the choice between active tags and passive tags. We already talked about some of the benefits, the pros and cons for each side of those. You usually want to use Bluetooth for things like proximity and position, and RFID for presence. And that's just purely because an active beacon gives you that ability to get additional location accuracy. And so if you're one of those businesses that control your own manufacturing, you can tag these at any step in the process. Typically, it would be after you complete the manufacturing. If you're one of those companies that don't manufacture your own goods, you would typically want to do this at the receiving dock. So basically, items get delivered, you are tagging them, as they get received and put away in your warehouse or distribution center. And then at that point, you're making the association with the unique tag. So for Bluetooth, it's the MAC address of the tag. RFID, we just call it the RFID tag number. Um, you're associating that tag, that unique tag value, with the unique value associated with what you want to track. And that's how you make that pairing, so that when it gets scanned, we know that tag 12345 is this SKU, or it's this pallet, or this, this particular piece of merchandise or inventory item. And so there's a number of ways you can do this. You can do this through mobile scanning. I scan the tag, I scan, something associated with with the merchandise. I make the marriage, and we're off and running. You can do this through a typical data import. Now, if you manage your own manufacturing, you may have somebody at the manufacturing side send you an Excel spreadsheet saying, this product has this tag number. You can just do an easy data import and then bring all that into the system. Or you can do it manually. If you're not receiving a lot of items at any given time, you can just go in and type it yourself. And this is not the best way. It's not the most efficient way, but you still can do it. If you're getting, shipments ad hoc and it's not, you're not getting a lot of a particular item, this could be effective as well. So again, it depends on where you tag it. If you have manufacturers tagging it, whether you're manufacturing your own goods or you have a relationship with a manufacturer where you can get them to tag it and then just send you a list of these items have these tags, and then you can just import it. Getting that into the system is incredibly fast. You can do this on the mobile with a simple barcode scan. Even if you're using an RFID tag or a Bluetooth tag, if the Bluetooth tag or RFID tag has a barcode on it that represents the MAC address or the RFID tag number, you can use your smartphone. If you use our Apptricity mobile application, you scan the tag and then you scan the product. And then you create a new item and you're off and running. The process takes less than a minute. And so it's incredibly efficient to do it that way. You can also do it through a data import. That's probably better if you have a bulk list of items. You're not going to want to sit here and scan back and forth for thousands of items. It'd be easier to just import from a spreadsheet. So, and then if you have a few items, you can also do it through manual data entry. So first step, deploy the infrastructure. Second step, tag the goods. Third step, relate the tag with the product. And then at that point, you're off and running. So let's talk about the benefits. We talked about the pain points. We talked about how to deploy a solution. We talked about the solutions. What do you get from doing this? That's really why we're here, right? What's the ROI that I can accomplish with this? And basically, let's go back to the pain points. Let's just address those and how we can solve them. You're reducing hours that you spend on cycle counts. So cycle counts can be automated. They're run at a user-defined frequency. Controllers will scan everything that's tagged, and it'll send a report to the inventory management solution. And then from the inventory management solution, you can generate reports automatically. So if you want to get a report every time a cycle count is complete, you can do that. And it'll scan and it'll send right to your inbox. So you can then use that to kind of compare and contrast with, I know I'm jumping ahead to the third bullet point, but you can use that to compare and contrast between your ERP, what your ERP says you have, and what your system of operation says you have. Because the system of operation is the day-to-day. It's giving you that, that real-time information. And if your ERP solution gets off, you can then use it to basically audit your ERP solution and correct any mistakes that may have happened. Things get lost, things get destroyed, things get stolen. Your system of operation can account for that. Your ERP solution may not be able to account for that in real time. If we talk about eliminating lost items in the warehouse, again, we're talking about reducing hours, labor hours, sending people out on, snipe hunts to go find your scanners that went missing or your pallet jacks that went missing. IPS solves this because it gives you accuracy. It lets you know this is where we last saw this item. And then you can go and, visually validate that item is still there. So you're reducing hours at that point. You're also reducing, lost items, right? A lot of times what we've encountered with customers that have, used a similar solution is that I lost something and I couldn't find it. So I had to go reorder it. But then after I reordered it, I found it. And, if you think about that for things that cost a lot of money, thousands to tens of thousands of dollars, and you multiply that process, by 50 times a year, it's a lot of money that you're spending on overspending. If you can't find the thing, but you have to have it, you reorder it. And then if you go out and find the thing again, it's like, oh, cool. Now I don't need two of these. So that's really what an IPS solution can really help solve. We talked about ensuring accuracy to your ERP solution, and we talked about automated status reports that get sent via email. There's a variety of reports that you can run within the system. Specifically within the Aptricity system, there are a handful of out-of-the-box reports, and then there's professional reporting that allows you to create your own. And we're going to be introducing a data analytics package here in the not too distant future, where you can get even deeper insights into what's available, trends that are happening, and it's all based off of the scan data that's coming in. So we're really excited to talk about that a little bit more. I imagine at some point I will do a more dedicated session towards that data analytics package as it becomes commercially available from the business. But it's something that, again, we want to tease because it's something that we're excited about moving into that next step of business intelligence. That's really what you're looking for, is that at a glance business intelligence that helps you make decisions quickly. And that's really what we're going to be shooting for. These are just some of the benefits. There's a whole host of benefits that come from a connected system. And that's really the point that we want to make here is we talk about the Internet of Things, and we've done some long form content on explaining what the Internet of Things is, but really what the Internet of Things provides for any supply chain is that connectivity. It's eliminating those traditionally dangerous blind spots in your supply chain. When a shipment goes missing, when things get lost, and that feeling you get in the pit of your stomach when you know you're responsible for that, that's what we're looking to eliminate by connecting things to the internet and giving that level of visibility. We're able to help prevent some of those events from happening. And that's really what we're in the business of doing, reducing those hours that you spend looking for lost items, or potentially even eliminating having any loss at all. It's certainly a possibility. It's something that we strive to do. I personally don't think it's impossible to completely eliminate if you deploy the correct solution. And that's what we're really looking to achieve at this section of the supply chain. Because like we mentioned, problems at this end snowball, and they get bigger and they compound as things continue to advance down the supply chain. So these are some of the solutions. These are some of the benefits that you can get with a connected system. So with that in mind, we'll move into our Q&A session. I'm going to take a drink of water to wet my throat a little bit, and we will do the Q&A session through Zoom chat. If you have a question, type it out. I'll be happy to address it. And then again, if we haven't yet had to do this, but if your question does not get addressed and answered, I'll have my email here in the next slide, and we can reach out. You can reach out to me directly, and we'll talk about it. But okay, question here from Scott: how small of an item can you track? It's a good question. It really depends on. It depends in part on the tag that you use, because if you think about an RFID tag can be about the size of a barcode. It can be even smaller than that, and then same with Bluetooth. Bluetooth can be about the size of a quarter in terms of what's the point between the two sides of a circle? I don't remember geometry very well. It's not the radius. It's the
You can say circumference, but it's not that.
It's not the circumference either. Anyway, it has the circumference of a quarter, but it's a little bit thicker than that. Let's just put it that way. I think that's probably the best way to put it. I need to shape up on my geometry. But yeah, so anyway, all that aside, you can track. We've done at Aptricity, we've tracked things like screws, but we usually do that at like the bucket level. So if you can think about, anything you can slap a barcode on, you can slap an RFID tag or a Bluetooth tag on. So I know that's not really a specific size, but that should give you some sort of visualization on, what size of an item you can track. So, we've done things like pallets, we've done things like, bottles of liquid, boxes of PPE. We've done just about everything there is to do. Things like screws, that's probably a little too small. But if you wanted to track it at the box level, that's certainly possible. Another question from Scott. Do you have any tags that can withstand high heat environments? Yes, we do. So that we have tags that basically go across the spectrum of IP. Uh, I know that there's different certifications. I think IP67 is the wind and the dust resistant. So there's different IP levels. That's actually a good resource that we should put out is the different IP levels and what they mean, and basically how different tags can be manufactured to meet those needs. Because there's all different sorts of IP certifications, things like being waterproof, being submergible up to 6 feet underwater, high heat, dust, wind, all of those different types of factors. We have partners that we work with who can manufacture tags that are capable of withstanding those different environmental concerns. We don't build our own RFID tags, but we do. We're also not married to a specific partner. And so anybody who manufactures a tag that can withstand those different environmental requirements, we can work with them and integrate them within our system. Same goes for Bluetooth. Okay, question from Ben. How far can the Bluetooth tag scan within a warehouse? So there's a couple of factors here. Excuse me. When you're setting up a Bluetooth tag, you're controlling two things. You're controlling the strength of the signal that gets sent out and the ping rate. And so when you're setting the strength to be higher, a lot of times the signal strength suffers because you're spending all that power to push the signal out further. Same thing with ping rate. If you have it ping more frequently, you're going to drain battery more. So those are two factors that go into Bluetooth tags. There are tags that can scan up to 100 meters, but as you get towards the fringes of that 100 meters, which I think there's 3 meters in a foot. There's 3 feet in a meter. That's it. So 300 feet. As you get towards the fringes of that 300 feet, that signal becomes less reliable. So if you're using a solution like indoor positioning, you suffer from location accuracy when you read tags from that far away. That's really where our algorithm comes into play to kind of filter out some of that data that may not be the most useful for determining position. But with Bluetooth, at Aptricity, we've had tags go up to 20 plus miles. That's not really a solution that you would need inside of a warehouse. But typically, we've seen up to 100 meters, 300 feet. The tags that are closer, that are closer to the controller, will have a better signal strength and therefore give you a more reliable position estimate. So it can go as low as 3 meters. It can go as high as what we've been able to accomplish is 20 miles. So really what we do in the consultative period and really the site analysis period is what we like to do is go on site, do a little bit of testing, and then determine, hey, we'll get the best results with these tags and this many controllers set up in this position. And so that's typically what we tend to do. Good questions, everybody. Any more questions? I'll give it another minute. How about that? All right. Well, if there are no other questions, then we will go ahead and close up this webinar series. This next webinar is Wednesday, October 5th. We'll be doing this at 10:30 a.m. Central Standard, so kind of the same format as this. We'll just be doing it on a Wednesday instead of a Thursday. The following webinar will be that following Monday. I believe that's the 10th. Same thing. It'll be at 10:30 Central Standard. And as I mentioned, if you have any additional questions, things that we didn't get to, I know that the Q&A session didn't last as long, but if you think of anything else that comes up, reach out to me at cgarcia@aptricity.com. I'd be happy to have a conversation with you, hop on a call, and just chat about about any questions that you may have or anything that we may not have covered here today. Like I mentioned, we're going to have this recording up on YouTube probably in the next couple of days. If you want to revisit today's session, that'll be the best place to do it. We encourage you to sign up for the subsequent webinars that will be going live next Wednesday and then the following Monday. We're going to have some great content about in-transit visibility and then managing at the storefront level as well. We're going to cover, really the three most important parts of that supply chain for your retail business. So we're excited to do that. We've got some good content for you. So we do encourage you to sign up for those sessions. We also would encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a lot of good content there as well, regarding more than just the retail supply chain. We have some content more broadly about the Internet of Things. We also talk about things like that on our podcast called Supply Change. So we encourage you to give that a look as well. But aside from that, we want to thank you for joining us today. We're going to break a little bit early, so enjoy the extra 13 minutes that you get in your life, and we will see you next week. That's right. So thank you again for joining, and have a good rest of your day.